let's rig this angel to fly.
It takes a lot more than feathers and glue to get humans up in the air.
Looks good. Let's take her up.
The desire to fly is as old as human culture. Ancient Egyptians studied birds to learn how to fly. Centuries later, we were still strapping on wings, jumping off cliffs, and crashing. It took a while to figure out that we were too heavy and too weak to propel ourselves with flapping wings. But in this century, our dreams of flight have become a reality. While we haven't grown wings, we have learned how to fly by shaping metal and plastic into machines that take us higher and faster than birds could ever fly. Our ability to fly has changed the way we live and perceive the world around us.
In this life we live, we are always in a hurry.
I couldn't do business without flying.
It actually makes me physically ill to fly, but I'll risk it because you can't drive there.
Flying always means vacation.
I'm leaving on a safari to Eastern Africa.
I'm a big fan of peanuts.
Once you get into a plane, it's like getting into a time traveling. It's a tube.
So speed is a thing.
But even frequent flyers packed into the belly of a 400-ton metal bird don't really understand how it works.
Rear propulsion and some airlifts and...
I'm pre-med, so you'd think that after all the physics classes I would know something, but
I know it has to do with the wing design.
The gust of air shooting up, I guess. The wind, I think, or coming down, I'm not sure which way.
I would just assume random air currents. I really don't know.
I think the plane goes fast enough to get enough air through the engine.
Propellers make it go up and down.
Jet.
I can't remember. The
propellers.
Wing is fatter at the front and then it streamlines out.
The air lifts it.
Okay, air's always important.
It's pretty impressive that it all works.
Every time I get up there, I think, how in the world is this happening?
He's not the only one. But the secret of flight can be broken down into 4 principles: thrust, lift, weight, and drag. First, we need a forward motion, and that requires thrust. This allows an upward force called lift to get us up in the air and to keep us up there. Overcoming the force of gravity, or weight, and the resistance of the air, a force called drag. To understand these principles, you need to understand the substance we fly in: air. Birds, balloons, and fighter jets all fly in the sea of air we call our atmosphere. Gravity holds the atmosphere to the Earth, the same way it holds you to the ground. Since we live in it and can't see it, it's easy to forget that air has weight and substance, and that it flows and has pressure, just like water does. If you happen to be at sea level, you're carrying around about the weight of a compact car on your shoulders. You don't feel it because you're supported by equal air pressure on all sides. And if you dive to the bottom of a swimming pool, you can feel the pressure increase. Well, it's the same with air. Pressure increases at the bottom because there's more stuff on top. But the light bulb really goes on once you understand how the air and a wing work together.
But then there's a moment that it all comes together, and I think prior to that moment, where you're putting the aspects of flying together, seems the hardest on you at that time. Because you understand this and you understand that, and but then how do they correlate? And then finally, at one moment, you see why at a certain speed, suddenly total lift is possible.
Gear is up.
John Travolta's been flying since he was 16.
Off and retracted.
He's logged over 4,000 hours since then and now flies his own Learjet, Gulfstream II, and a Canadian fighter jet back and forth to shooting locations.
Cabin's climbing.
He gets asked a lot of questions about how lift works.
People ask me continually, I don't understand how a plane that heavy can get in the air. And then I always tell them to, when they're driving, you know, at least 30 miles an hour, if it's safe to do so, roll down your window, stick your hand out.
This is something that every child has done who has at least thought about lift. When I thrust my hand out the window and turned my hand down like this and deflected some air, it forced my hand up.
The air flows faster over the top of your hand than it does under the bottom, just like it does over a bird or plane wing.
And by cambering it, in other words, giving it a shape of this bird's wing, for example, where you have some curvature in it, you can get even a sensation of more lift.
As the speed of a fluid-like air increases, the pressure decreases. And finally, the payoff. The faster-moving air over the top of the wing exerts lower pressure, so that the higher pressure air underneath the wing pushes up and gives us lift. For the air to flow faster over the top of the wing, it has to hit the wing at a particular angle. This is angle of attack.
So in airplanes, what we say operating range, or its angle of attack range in which it makes lift, is actually quite small. It's only about 10 degrees. Whereas 90 degrees is straight up, only about 11% of that, from horizontal to straight up, is actually used.
So there's a thin line between lift and stall.
For example, if an airplane's maneuvered too much, then it becomes nonlinear. In other words, if you pull back further, it doesn't get more lift. It has a stall, and then it does bad things.
Down we go. 40, 50, 60. It's gonna be a while. 75. Come on, recover.
Pilots are trained to know how to avoid becoming nonlinear. Still, stalls happen. Whether they're studying linear or nonlinear flight, airplane designers examine airfoils, which look like a wing slice, to see how air will flow around them.
Now, actually, the hand is a very poor wing, as you might expect. It's draggy because it's blunt. A perfect airfoil is very round, like this on the front, and sharp, thin on the back, and smooth. So a beautiful wing, like you find on a sailplane or a high-performance airplane, is mainly impressive because of its drag rather than because of its lift. It has very low drag.
Laminar flow, air moving smoothly over a surface, is what the experts dream about. Engineers in the 30s called it streamlining. The term entered the language and the technique inspired decades of design. Box shapes were banished and curves were in.